Hey guys, so in yesterday's lesson we learned how to convert between different imperial units. Today we're going to briefly start by reviewing how to convert between different metric units, and then we're going to look at how to convert between imperial units and those metric units. And most of these methods are going to be the exact same as the ones that we learned yesterday. Okay, so this is lesson 1.3, SI and imperial units. In this case, the SI refers to System International, or the International System of Units, which is the system of units used by most of the countries in the world, with a big exception being the United States. And our metric units, which are the ones that refer to length in particular, fall under the category of SI units. So when we're talking about SI units, what we mean is the metric units of length. So to convert between different SI units, it means to convert between things like kilometers, hectometers, decameters, meters, decimeters, centimeters, and millimeters. And each of these are separated by a unit of 10. So anytime I'm asked to convert between SI units, I always start off by writing out at least the first letter of all of these. And the way I remember it is King Henry drank milk during Christmas Mass. But any way that you can remember the order of these units works. So let's go over how to convert. In this first example here, I have said that I have 13.7 centimeters. I want to know how many meters that is. So the way I do this is I write out my King Henry drank milk during Christmas Mass, and then I start with whatever unit I'm given. So in this case, centimeters. I'm just going to start there, and then I'm going to move to meters. So to do that, I have to move 2 spots to the left. And so now I'm going to go back to the number I was given. I'm going to start wherever the decimal place is and move 2 spots to the left. So 1, 2. That leaves me with my answer being 0.137 meters. You could also divide by 100 and you would get the same answer. In the second example here, I have 0.28 kilometers and want to know how many meters that is. So in this case, I am once again going to be starting, trying to find a different color pen. Don't have one. I'm going to be starting with kilometers because that's what I'm given. So I'll start there. And once again, I'm going to be going to meters. In order to do that, I need to move 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. So once again, I'm going to start where my decimal place is. And I'm going to move 1, 2, 3 spots to the right. That leaves me, and I'll just kind of rewrite it down here, with 0.28 becoming this. And so anywhere that I have this kind of like empty lump, I'm going to write in a 0. And so my answer is 280 meters. You could also multiply by 1,000 to get that. One last example, I have 142,000 centimeters. I want to know how many kilometers that is. So I'm going to start with my centimeters and move all the way to kilometers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots to the left. In this case, this number doesn't already have a decimal in it, so we're going to just put the decimal at the end. And then, just like we did up here, I'm going to move 5 spots to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so our answer is 1.42 kilometers. Okay, again, these kind of conversions between different measurements of SI length are not on your formula sheet. You do have to just memorize how to do this. Okay, the next thing that we're going to look at is how to convert between these SI units and imperial units, like the ones we looked at yesterday. And for this, you will be using your formula sheet as well. Okay, so in this example here, I have asked you to convert between meters and yards. And when we're converting between, there goes my pen. If we're converting between metric or SI units and imperial units, then we're going to use either the proportion method or the unit analysis method that we talked about in yesterday's lesson. So I'm going to start by going over how to do this with the proportion method, the one that I'm actually good at. So I'm going to look at my formula over here, and you can see I have a formula to go between yards and meters. So I'm going to start by writing out that conversion. So 1 yard is equal to 0.914 meters. And then I'm going to stack my units. So my 14 yards goes underneath my yards, and my unknown meters goes underneath my meters. From there, I'm going to cross multiply. And in this case, we have x times 1, which is just x, and then 14 times 0.914, which I need to do on my calculator. And that gives me 12.796 meters as my answer. Alternatively, I could use unit analysis. So in this case, I know that I'm going to be multiplying by 14 yards. So I need to set up this 1 yard is equal to 0.914 as a fraction, and I need yards to be on the bottom to cancel out this 14 yards. So I'm going to have the 1 yard on the bottom and the 0.914 meters on the top. And then when I do that, I multiply straight across the top and straight across the bottom. That gives me 0.914 times 14, which is, oopsies, 12.796 meters over 1, which is just 12.796 meters. And again, my yards cancel out, which is why I'm left with just meters as my final unit. So whichever of those methods you prefer, you can use, but that is how you would convert between SI and imperial units. The last thing we're going to look at is if more than one imperial unit or more than one metric unit is involved. Okay, so for this last example, I have told you to convert 2 feet 9 inches into centimeters. So I have given you more than one unit to convert. Now, this is important because these are like really common types of questions, but there are multiple different ways of doing this. So I could convert 2 feet into centimeters, convert the 9 inches into centimeters, and then just add those amounts together. Alternatively, I could also convert, say, my 2 feet into inches, add the total amount of inches together, and then convert all of that into centimeters. So I'll go through kind of those two different methods. And again, for this, you can use either proportions or unit analysis, whichever you would rather. Okay, so in this case, the easiest method is probably going to be to convert 2 feet into inches as my first step. And the reason for that is that we are given a conversion between feet and inches as well as between inches and centimeters. So my first step will be to say that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. And then stack my units. So 2 feet is how many inches? I cross multiply, x times 1 is x, and 2 times 12 is 24. And again, many of you that are familiar with conversions are probably just going to be able to go well, if I want to convert this to inches, I obviously just multiply 2 times 12. Again, lots of different methods to do this. But now my second step is going to be to take those 24 inches and add them to the 9 inches that I already had, which would get me 33 inches. And then my final step will be to convert 33 inches into centimeters. So to do that, I'm going to set up my proportion of 1 inch being 2.54 centimeters, and then stack my units. So 33 inches is how many centimeters? I cross multiply, so x times 1 is x, and 33 times 2.54 is 83.82 centimeters. So that would be my answer. I'm also going to show you another way that you could have done this. And the only reason I'm going to show you this is because you will sometimes be given a problem where the conversions you're trying to do just aren't on this chart. So let's go over how we would do that instead. So this is just another method to convert 2 feet 9 inches into centimeters. In this case, I'm going to convert each of these separately into centimeters. So I'm going to start by saying, for my first step, 1 foot is equal to 0.305 meters. You'll notice that I'm doing meters here instead of centimeters, and that's because that's the only conversion that I'm given between imperial and metric units involving a foot. Then I'll stack my units, so 2 feet is equal to how many meters? And cross multiply, x times 1 is x, 2 times 0.305 is 0.61 meters. My next step is going to be to convert that meters into centimeters. So to do that, I'm going to do my King Henry drank milk during Christmas Mass. And I'm going between meters over to centimeters. So I'm going to move 2 spots to the right, which means I take my decimal and move 2 spots to the right. So that means that x is 61 centimeters. Then for my third step, I'm going to convert my 9 inches into centimeters. So I'll go 1 inch is equal to 2.54 centimeters. 9 inches is how many centimeters? Ignore that line. Cross multiply, x times 1 is x. And 9 times 2.54 is 22.86 centimeters. And so my final step is to just add my 22.86 centimeters plus the 61 centimeters, and we get 83.86. Now you will notice that my 2 numbers are not exact. They are slightly different from each other, here and here. And the reason for that has to do with, if you look over on our formula sheet here, this little squiggle that appears over top of the equal signs, that's telling us that these are approximate conversions. So anytime we can use imperial conversions instead of imperial to metric conversions, you're going to be slightly more accurate. So because I have done 2 different metric to imperial conversions or imperial to metric conversions in this second example, and only 1 in my first example, it means that my first example is actually more accurate. However, there will be times where you have to do more than 1 imperial to metric conversion. On a test or a quiz, either one of these answers would be accepted as correct. Okay, that is it for today's lesson. I did do both of these examples using proportions instead of unit analysis. You could, of course, use unit analysis instead. And if you want a hand with that, let me know and I can help you with that one-on-one.